It's time for Justice for All, Behind the Badge video, streamed live from Team Toyota Route 1 in Langhorne with your host, Tom Mellon, featuring Bucks County District Attorney Matt Weintraub and Bucks County Sheriff Fred Herron. Here's your host from Team Toyota, Tom Mellon.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome here in this beautiful town of the township of Langhorne. Justice for All, a show that I'm very, very proud of to bring to our listeners each and every month. And it's shared, obviously, contiguously with our sheriff as well, Freddie Herron.
That's right.
When Fred comes in and we do Behind the Badge, we started that show many moons ago when he was the director of public safety in Ben Salem Township. And welcome, everyone, and we want to thank Paul Muller, who's the sponsor of our show here at Team Toyota, 746 East Lincoln Highway, and the home of the Heroes program that I've been very proudly running. It's hard to believe, 14, 15 years now, and
That's wonderful.
the years just keep going by. Jennifer Schorn, who is here with us today, the first assistant district attorney in Bucks County, major responsibilities. And Chief, we're real happy to have you here today, Chief Joe Kelly from the Yardley Township. Welcome aboard, Joe, and we're going to talk a little bit about your show as well.
Thank you, Tom.
That's doing
just so my residents don't kill me, Yardley Borough.
Yardley Borough.
All right.
Oh my God, yes, Yardley Township, Yardley Borough. We have to be politically correct here. But thanks for joining us today. We have a lot to discuss, but a little background on Jennifer, who's I believe the chief for grand jury and trial divisions.
Yeah, I actually just passed the torch of grand jury to my colleague Mary Kay Kohler, who's outstanding at what she does, but truly still my passion, and I still work cases in the grand jury.
Many of them, sure.
But passed the day-to-day operations to Mary Kate and my colleague Jovan as well, Jovan Joes.
Oh, that's great.
So,
A shout out to Matt Weintraub,
Yes.
our district attorney, who's running for Common Pleas
Court of Common Pleas judge, yes, absolutely.
How's that coming along?
Oh my gosh, Matt is outstanding.
He
Matt
really
is the
is.
most principled prosecutor I've ever met, and is just outstanding to work with and for. So
We're really, I'm very fortunate to have this show and to have the leadership qualities that we find with Chief Joe Kelly and with Jennifer Schorn. You should feel very privileged living in this county with the leadership that we have to keep it safe and sound. You're going to learn a lot today. We're going to be talking to the chief, who has a background. I believe you started in Maplewood, New Jersey.
I did, yes.
As a dispatcher and a police
As a young
officer.
kid, yeah.
You're still young, Joe.
I like to think so, but after 37 years of doing this, I don't feel so much anymore.
Wow, and then from 92 to, I think, 2015, you were with the New Jersey Transit Police.
Correct, yep. I rose through the ranks there.
Held many positions there. And
a lot. I started as a police officer there and rose to the rank of deputy chief and chief of operations.
Well, that's
and
phenomenal.
did a year and a half as acting chief of department.
And now you're with Yardley, which
Yes,
is great.
yes. I'm
Yardley
living my dream in Yardley.
Living your dream, that's for sure. And all the Yardley residents should feel very safe and sound. As we're going to discuss today, some of the profound situations that have occurred in Yardley, and obviously they transcend not only in Bucks County but everywhere. Philadelphia is just we could talk for hours and hours about the mess that's down there. But I want to pick your brain a little bit, the two of you, about how things, the quality of life could be restored down there a little bit better in Philadelphia. But let's talk a little bit about your situation, which occurred, I believe it was last August.
yes, correct. Last August of 2021.
Yep.
Yes.
August 18th.
And you were assisting a probation officer?
I was our duty officer. Frequently on days it'll be myself and a duty officer, who will be the primary responder to all calls. He was on his way to the lab, and I told him I would cover calls. I was supposed to meet Chief Danny Doyle from Tullytown for lunch and then start a vacation weekend, a very, very long weekend. And my duty officer was well on his way to the lab. I heard a probation officer, which the weird thing about was I never heard the voice before, right? She's not from my zone. She doesn't work my area. And I hear 96, 126. I'll be out at a certain location, and I need a check in 5 minutes. In my 8 years in Yardley, I've never heard anyone ask, any probation officer ask for a check. So automatically you know something might be up, right?
Sure.
So I'm automatically thinking I got to go over there And then within the minute, she calls and says there's a domestic in progress at the home and she needs police.
And boy, we know domestic matters, they can really erupt and become very serious and violent and dangerous.
It's a powder keg.
Yeah, it really is, and it's something that just exacerbated at that point when you arrived.
Right. So that probation officer, Christina Viviano, somebody I'm very, very fond of.
As am I.
Yeah, exactly.
Christine, hopefully you're listening out there.
Her judgment, and I always say our combined judgment, were actually necessary to paint the positive outcome that occurred that day, because I believe Christina had an open door. I believe that door was unlocked. I believe she could have entered, but she was smart enough to know that this would have been better handled by police. And then when I got there, she relayed everything she knew, which was not a lot because it's not her case.
Of course.
But enough to tell me, hey, tread lightly. So instead of entering the unit, it was a second floor walk up. So instead of entering it, I looked through the upper windows. It's one of those doors with the two panes. And because it was a sunny summer day, it was one of those instances where I had to put my hand up and let my eyes adjust from extreme brightness to extreme darkness. And as my eyes adjusted, that's when I saw the adversary with a shotgun.
My God. So at that point, obviously, you knew you had to cover and protect yourself and your surroundings as well.
But I never had the time, right?
You didn't have the time.
No.
It was
so I got hit in that hand I was using to adjust the daylight to darkness and a piece of my ear.
It was a shotgun blast.
Correct. Number 4 buckshot.
Ooh. So those little pellets, for those of you who are not aware of how dangerous it can be, they spray. I mean, you got lead bullets that are just spraying out there. And
a lot of them stayed in one spot.
right where your hand
15 of them wound up in my hand.
My God. So you're shot. Right. Obviously, you protect Christina from...
we protect each other, sure.
Protected each other.
We tactically relocated between two cars.
That's for sure.
A number of yards away.
Yeah. So what happens at that point? I mean, obviously, he's in there.
Right.
You don't know what else he's armed with.
So we cover the door. I call for assistance. Lower Makefield's the closest police department around. Chief Ken Caluzzi of Lower Makefield, a great friend. The 8 years I've been here, there's never been a time when Yardley PD has needed assistance, and they haven't come like they were coming to one of their own calls. I couldn't ask for anything better. Within minutes, we had several Lower Makefield cars, but also Upper Makefield, Middletown, Marsville, Tullytown. I mean, cars were coming from everywhere. So that's a great feeling when when you're establishing it. We establish instant command, and I'm covering that door, right? I just want to make sure he's not coming out and posing a threat to anybody else.
Yes.
But then as soon as we have enough cars, it's surrounded, I turned over command to a Lower Makefield commanding officer, and then I was transported to St. Mary's.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, you take care of yourself, obviously, there, but you were more concerned with the situation there, the environment, and it's just commendable and heroic what had occurred. And fortunately, there was no loss of life.
No, fortunately, correct. No suspect, no bystander, and no police officer.
Exactly. The offender?
We ultimately, he was arrested later that day after several hours of a standoff. But one thing Chief Kelly mentioned early on in this investigation that gives me the chills each and every time, and Christina reiterated it, was after Joe was shot and, took cover, watching the door, but speaking with Christina Viviano to make sure she was okay. Joe was obviously bleeding and didn't know exactly where he was hit. God. And I hope if you don't mind, Joe, would you mind going over what you did and what the one thing you needed to do before you went to St. Mary's?
Sure. I kind of left that out, and I don't always know if it was the right decision, but it was the decision I made. I asked Christine, I said, if you could evaluate me right away. I have blood, my whole left side of my white shirt was covered in blood.
Sure.
I said, it's coming from the head. I just don't know where. If it's superficial, I can stay with you and we can finish this thing out. If it's not, I'm going to have to get on the ambulance right away.
Of course.
So she said, no, it's just heavy damage to your ear.
To the ear area.
I could see and evaluate my own hand.
Yeah.
Which was my support hand. Great academy training, great training through the years, right? You never handle anything,
exactly
in your gun hand. So my support hand's hit. That's fine. It's going to be okay. And then my phones were in the police car because I'm experienced and dumb and don't always bring all my equipment out of the car. And I couldn't get back to the police car, so I have no telephone.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
I decided, and I'm not sure if it was the best decision, but I decided to call my wife myself.
Okay.
She's a civilian employee in the police department in the town for which we live. And I called from Christina's number, and she doesn't always answer unknown numbers, especially ones from Philadelphia. And by the grace of God, she picked up, and she says, I said, it's me. She says, why are you on this phone? I said, I don't have time to go into that, but I need you to know I was shot. I'm okay, and I'm going to be going to the St. Mary's in a few minutes.
Yes.
And it sounded like a possum getting run over by a car.
I'll
The
bet.
screaming.
Oh, God.
I mean, everybody in her town hall could hear it on multiple floors.
I'll bet.
So then I said, this is not a good idea. I need to find my son. My son is a police officer.
I read that. That's that's great.
So I tracked him down next, and I said, thank God he was off. I said, you got to get to town hall, and you got to corral your mother because I don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
And you got to get her down here.
Yes.
And that was the last I heard from them until the local police thankfully drove her down to Langhorne.
Did you lose consciousness at all? Because
I did not.
Yeah, you probably were in shock, obviously.
I did not. And when I was at the weird thing was at the hospital, and the thing that sticks with me today is I was very, very worried about the residents and the businesses. We are a tight-knit community in Yardley, and they love the police department. It's not just me. This police department was entrenched in that town well before I got there. And I knew there was a lot of people worrying, right? It was on Twitter that I was hit. And so when Matt Weintraub came in, and he was very, very, very afraid that this was worse than it was. So I took the good hand and wrapped it around him and told him, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
And I need you to go outside and tell people that.
Yes.
And thankfully, the DA's office handled a lot of that press. They made an initial release at the hospital, and then they went back to the scene and did a press release there.
Matt's terrific.
Yeah. I was with Matt. We were in his corner office when this came out, and you could see immediately the concern, the worry, the weight of this, on Matt. And obviously he works closely with our chiefs of police and meets regularly with all of them and has the utmost respect for law enforcement. And then when you hear, a member of law enforcement in our Bucks County community was shot and is being taken to the hospital. I mean, he was wearing his emotions.
Of
course. It was obvious.
And
knew that, he was going to hop in the car and head down. And I think that was obviously the best decision, given the circumstance. And this was still very much while the standoff was ongoing.
And I try and give credit to, I came from a police department that had a lot of, as you did, a lot of our own capabilities. We had our own SWAT team.
Sure.
We had our own hazmat team. We had a lot of these capabilities. And to watch this come together from 11, 12, 14, 15 disparate agencies from 2 states, New Jersey responded in, and to watch it go as smoothly as it did with police officers from agencies that have never met before it was so reassuring to know that all of this training and all of this preparation, when it comes together, it just works flawlessly.
Yeah, if you think about it, I mean, as a Commonwealth, every municipality can potentially have their own department, and some boroughs, some bigger townships, and some regional departments. And so, as Chief Kelly said, the training, it's different. There's several, command staff and whatnot. So when the CERT team responds to something like this and they just go seamlessly, it's remarkable to see how professional these men and women are in these extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You're listening to Jennifer Schorn, the first assistant district attorney here in Bucks County, and Chief Joe Kelly, Yardley Borough. We're going to take a quick station break here to show some appreciation for our sponsors, right, Bree? We're going to return and we're going to talk to the chief a little bit more about the judicial process, what occurred after this, terrible incident. And Jennifer's here to provide some wisdom and direction as she always does on this show. Justice for All. You're listening to WBCB 1490 and 107.3 FM on the dial. Don't go anywhere. We'll return in a few moments.
During the Toyota Ready, Set, Go sales event, just imagine yourself in a new Toyota. Whatever you need, from an electric vehicle to a rugged, versatile truck, we have new Toyotas on the ground for immediate delivery. or choose from over 100 certified used options, which undergo a rigorous inspection and include an amazing warranty. Plus service centers that can save you time and money and keep you on the road. So let's go to Team Toyota this spring. Just visit teamtoyota.net to find a location near you.
Hi, this is Mayor Jeff Martin of Hamilton Township, inviting you to tune in to our monthly radio show, This Month in Hamilton. Video stream live the fourth Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. at WBCB1490.com. We will be featuring various guests from Hamilton Township to keep you up to date on what's going on in Hamilton.
Hey, this is Jonesy. Kick off your Thursday and Friday evenings in style. Join me for an eclectic freeform mix of the hits and beyond. It's a happening, a musical journey. It's the Glenn Jones Radio Experience, right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM, Thursday and Friday, 5 to 6 p.m., directly following the legendary Jerry Blavitt. Radio, the way it ought to be.
Welcome back to Justice for All here in the beautiful showroom of Team Toyota in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. I can't believe, Jennifer, Joe, I've been here for almost 15 years, and it seems like yesterday when I first walked through the doors here. But we have a great program, as I've shared with the two of you, the Heroes Program for all of our police, fire, our military, medical. Paul Muller, who's a military veteran, he embraced, some of the programs and objectives that I put together. Medical is included now as well. One day he said to me, I notice you have doctors. And I said, well, I learned when I worked the streets of North Philadelphia that we also have a branch of heroes that are in the medical profession. Yeah. Because if I had somebody shot, stabbed, hit by a car, babies that are injured, I wasn't able to help. I mean, you're protecting life and property out there, but when it comes to medical assistance, thank God for our heroes, our doctors and radiologists and nurses and everyone in the emergency rooms. Episcopal and Temple hospitals, that's where I was most of the time when I was on duty, taking people back and forth all the time. But it's a great program that we have here for all of you listening and for family members as well. We have a special offer going out now that for all of our heroes and their family members, it's where many dealerships are charging over MSRP. They call it a market adjustment. Baloney. They're just able to make more money because of the supply and demand with vehicles. But here, I went to Paul, the owner, and he said, why don't we do something special? And now we're $500 off, under MSRP, and all discounts on the warranty protections when, all of our members need a vehicle. We'll be sending an email blast out with all of our police chiefs' help, our firefighters, and some of the hospital divisions, so that they're aware that they can come in or call 215-768-6505. And it's just a great program here to thank and honor all of our heroes. And some, it's a way of giving back. That's what Paul Muller finds to be, real nice to do.
That's outstanding. Yeah,
it is outstanding. But let's get back to this incident. The chief, obviously, heroically safeguarding the public and protecting the probation officer, Christine Viviano, who is of small stature, as you were pointing out.
A little bit smaller than me,
you,
but most people are, Tom.
Yeah, Christina is this beautiful, slight, young, fierce probation and parole officer who works for Bucks County. And I have to say, I've been a prosecutor now for almost 24 years. This summer it'll be 24 years. And I've had the privilege of working with the men and women of our adult probation and parole. And, I always understood what they do, that they go out and they do offender checks and they, encounter scenarios that at times can be dangerous. But boy, did this shine a light on just how courageous they are. Wow. They go into these circumstances unarmed and don't know what they're going to face. And thankfully, most days, everything is as it should be. But you're already supervising an individual who has broken the law, and maybe there's substance abuse and certainly violent tendencies and mental health. And really, they go into these residences and, have to, gauge walking in. the level of safety. And Christina was remarkable on this day. And when she describes it, she said there was something strange. She had a gut feeling that, this was like a little uncertain. And she's typically in neighborhoods that have higher crime levels. And so it's kind of ironic driving through Yardley Borough having that sensation. And she even said that she spoke to her mom and said, Mom, I don't have this weird feeling today. So there was something where caused her to be hyper alert, and thank God she was, and she used her instincts and training and assessed that this was not a good situation for her to be entering unarmed and alone, and so she called for backup. And that's where, the combined instincts and training and experience of Chief Joe Kelly and Christina Viviano were remarkable, because I really do believe, they saved their own lives, but they ended up protecting the community as well, just based on how the entire situation was handled. I mean, after all, I think, Joe, a daycare was evacuated, multiple businesses were evacuated during this standoff. It could have been worse. It was terrible to begin with Joe. Thank God Joe has recovered, but not full use of the hand with multiple fractures.
That one finger will never bend again.
Oh, jeez.
But you can only imagine what it could have been, but for their combined training instincts and just, true professionals. So, yeah, it was quite a day.
And to echo what Jen said, Tom, on that, I mean, I didn't know a lot about probation and parole either. I've been doing this job almost
many
4
years.
decades, right? And you kind of take them for granted. They're in the back. They're doing a very, very difficult job. But since the shooting, I've gotten close to a group of them, Brock, Melissa, Natalie, Leslie, Christina, and they've taken me under their wing. And I've learned a lot more about their job. I teach criminal justice at Bucks County Community College.
You do?
I have them address my students.
Okay.
I think it's a great career path for someone who's looking to get into criminal justice but doesn't want to be a police officer. And I think they're heroes in their own right. I mean, I want my students to be exposed to young men and women like this. They have a very difficult job in that on certain hours of the day they have to be social workers and coaches. And then on certain hours of the day they have to be both police officers and disciplinarians. And I think it takes special people to mold those two, right? Because at 9:30 I might have to be your coach, and at 10:30 I might have to be the cop.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
It's
Taking on different
difficult,
roles.
difficult job. And these ladies and young men that are employed here in Bucks County do it the best.
They really are. They're true professionals.
I have a question for each of you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a profession that they should have a license to carry for jobs like that, where there's danger, imminent danger that could occur? Is it something that maybe perhaps down the road they may?
I think we're going to answer differently on this one, because Jed's a county employee and I'm not.
Okay.
And
it's a tough question.
I have to recognize that I'm not qualified to answer that. But what I am grateful for is, and perhaps this will continue to grow and build the relationships. It's because of the outstanding men and women in law enforcement, probation and parole, and the working relationship they have with one another. With Christina radioing in that she wants to be checked on in 5 minutes, and immediately, Joe, the chief of police, responding and sitting up and listening, and then is kind of on the ready, is the way I described it. And so I can't speak to that, Joe. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, all right, you loaded me up on this one.
Yeah, because it's a quick. It could be a quick instant, as we know. It could be a flash.
So again, I'm the new guy in town, right?
Right.
Only 8 years in this state and this county, but I'll acknowledge some of the changes that have been made to the probation officers and parole officers' protection. They didn't have radios in the past.
My goodness.
So at least now they are armed with radios. They call out at the location they're at. The local police hear where they're at. Even if they're not asked to go by there, some of the proactive departments, including mine, will take those drives by just in case they're needed.
Safe, right.
And then they're getting those 5-minute checks. As for being armed, I think it's a happy medium.
Okay.
I think that some of the Bucks probation and parole officers are armed.
They are?
They are.
I didn't know that.
A small percentage, and they receive special training. I think what's appropriate is having a amount of them who want to be voluntarily armed be armed, and then conduct threat assessments similar to what we do with warrants. So when we get a warrant, one of Jen's fellow prosecutors will issue a warrant to us. As you know, in our business, we'll do a threat assessment, past criminal history, are weapons known to be known there, are fugitives known to be known there, and then we'll score that, And if that scores at a certain amount, we're going to send a SWAT team there. If it scores under that amount, we're not. I think what would really help probation and parole is if they conduct those threat assessments on the people they supervise, and then assign the armed people accordingly and assign the unarmed people accordingly.
I understand.
Now, that's not foolproof. It's not foolproof with us either, but where it's predictable, it's preventable.
Well, that's a good step. That you've taken, and certainly it safeguards enough of the threats that are out there, because at any time anything can happen.
They have a very difficult job.
Oh my God, domestic cases, probation assists. Domestic, I think, is the worst. When you go into and you're called to help those it could be a family, and all of a sudden the fight breaks out in the house when we're told that the person who owns the property, for example, looks at you and says, "I want this person out of my house." Well, if they're a juvenile, that's a little complicated. But if they're an adult, if they're 18 years of age and older, obviously we have to escort them out, and that's when the resistance occurs. And then all of a sudden, everyone's against the police. They call us there.
Exactly right. I was talking to a guy who visited Borough Hall a couple of years ago. Told me he was a Yardley cop in the late 40s and early 50s and quit.
Wow.
So I was just intrigued, right? I can't spend enough time talking to him. And he says, the reason I left is because I went on a domestic above an old hardware store on Main Street, and first the husband hit me, then the wife hit me. My radio didn't work. My gun didn't work. This is 60 years ago.
Yeah,
so you felt the guy's pain. But
you did.
Domestics have been a dangerous situation for law enforcement officers since the beginning of time.
That's true. And you don't know what you're facing, who you're facing.
You really don't.
I had a situation many, many years ago, and I still remember it like it was yesterday, like it's right now.
Yeah.
Hot summer day on Camac Street in North Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
We're summoned to a house. We walk in, myself and Charlie Kaczynski was my partner. And Charlie goes, another one of these strifes that we're going to have to walk in. I said, well, look, we're here. We're not babysitters, but we have to go in and, make an assessment. We go in, everybody's running around screaming and hollering at each other. It had to be, I would say, 15 or 20 members. Not all family. You had friends in there, apparently. But they're all, I want her out of the house, pointing to a female. And she was of adult age. And I'm smiling because I still remember it. We said, you're going to have to leave. And, after getting all types of expletives from these people, from her, she said, I'm not going anywhere. And they said, get her out of here. So look at what she's causing. So I went to escort her out, slipped. She's on top of me. And that's when it all turned.
Oh, no.
And the whole house turned on me and my partner. So, to a point where it turned out to be a triple assist officer. And we had other divisions and highway patrol and stakeout coming into the neighborhood. You just never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
What we're seeing today, too, is, methamphetamine has come back with a vengeance. And now cocaine again. And those stimulants, being used by individuals, inevitably are going to result in more domestic disturbances. But then they're also, the aggressive behavior is enhanced because they're stimulants.
Yes,
and
they
so you just don't know when an offender is going to be, in a blind rage.
Sure.
And you're walking in unaware
of
what
anything
you're going to be
happen.
facing. Yeah.
We didn't even wear the bulletproof vest back then. I hate to say that. I mean, we just didn't. So,
Scary.
Even more frightening.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
But let's get back to this situation. So an arrest is made, apparently. And
well, that's where Jen could take over.
Good. We're going to take a fast break. Okay. And we'll have Jen talk about this judicial process that occurred with this assailant, offender. And then we'll talk about the trial. We'll talk about the judge. I believe it was Bateman.
Judge Bateman.
Judge Bateman, who handed down the sentence. And your perspective, just incredible, the prudent perspective that you had. I'm going to quote you as far when we get back. It's just, it's commendable how you feel as a professional when these people do need treatment, but yet they need to be institutionalized. They need to be taken off the street as well. You're listening to Justice for All with Jennifer Schorn, the first Assistant District Attorney, and our special guest, Chief Joe Kelly from Yardley Borough. I'm Tom Mellon. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more to share with you about this situation.
During the Toyota Ready, Set, Go sales event, just imagine yourself in a new Toyota. Whatever you need, from an electric vehicle to a rugged, versatile truck, we have new Toyotas on the ground for immediate delivery. Or choose from over 100 certified used options, which undergo a rigorous inspection and include an amazing warranty. Plus service centers that can save you time and money and keep you on the road. So let's go to Team Toyota this spring. Just visit teamtoyota.net to find a location near you.
Are you a parrot head?
We stayed away again in Margarita.
Not that kind.
Oi dana, mala to papuga.
That's more like it. If you're this kind of parrot head, don't forget to check out the Denny-O Polka Show every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon right here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.
WBCB is now on your FM dial at 107.3. Serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties since 1958, you can now listen to all of your BCB favorites crystal clear on 107.3 FM. A new age for WBCB on a new frequency, 107.3.
We're back with Jennifer Schorn, who's the first assistant district attorney in this beautiful county of Bucks, and Chief Joe Kelly. Great story that we're sharing with you. Commendable story, and just goes to show how safe and secure you can be because of the public safety professionals that we have out there. Joe, let's take it to the next step where, obviously you're rushed off to the hospital, St. Mary's, and you're feeling much better because you know that the area is secured and no one's going to be getting hurt, but you're going to get mended.
Kind of.
Which is kind of nice.
Kind of. Those first few hours, Tom, I'm feeling better that it's contained.
Yes.
But I have the medical people have me cut off to communications at the scene. So I have to go old-fashioned. I have a Yardley cop assigned to the hospital who is going out and speaking to the chiefs that are at the hospital.
Sure.
Getting me information and coming on back every time the doctor turns around. My big concern at that point is I don't want any other police officers hurt. I don't want any civilians hurt, especially police officers that are coming into my town in responsing to help me. I wasn't really feeling secure until I was told he is in custody and no one additional got hurt.
Sure.
So for a couple hours, we were on pins and needles.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty extraordinary day. Not to mention, as this was occurring in Yardley, Middletown Township ended up having
Good point.
Middletown, whose officers responded to Yardley Borough,
Yes.
had to leave that scene and deal with an individual who, a domestic, where a good Samaritan who intervened to try to protect this woman was shot in the face.
Ooh.
Then the perpetrator fled into Philadelphia, where ultimately he engaged in a gunfight and was fatally shot in Philadelphia by police, which was justified.
Of course.
So you have now the lower end of Bucks County, and multiple agencies from all over, but now their resources are being divided. So it was quite the day, and just goes to show, beautiful summer day starts out that way, just like obviously a spring day today, and you just don't know what events are going to unfold. So needless to say, through the remarkable work done by all, starting with Joe and Christina, the men and women of the CERT team and all the surrounding police agencies that responded, and the county detectives that I work with, safely took this defendant into custody, where he was armed also with a handgun. He was clearly under the influence. He was inebriated. He actually went unconscious because he was so intoxicated.
Not that it matters, but what time of day?
It was, by the time, it was...
The response occurred around 11:15.
In the morning?
In the morning. It was the morning. So by the time he was taken into custody, it was probably early afternoon, late afternoon.
Yeah, like mid to late afternoon, I'm thinking.
Reason for my question is he started real early with abuse.
Yes.
Abuse of intoxication, drugs.
Oh, great point. Great point. And we unearthed so much evidence. I had fantastic county detectives as the affiants on the case. My colleagues, Frank Groom and Mark Zielinski, were the assigned, and they just unearthed every piece of evidence to show not only a history of prolonged drug abuse, starting in the early adolescence, adolescent years. This offender, used every hallucinogenic drug he could get his hands on, which obviously is going to cause,
of course,
episodes of paranoia. And then they also were able to show, though, a clear history of violence that was increasingly getting worse. And so ultimately, within 10 days, we had the preliminary hearing, which is pretty unusual. It's more often than not, there's an immediate date given, and then that's a hearing at the lower court level, as you know, Tom. And we were under the impression he was going to waive, meaning not fighting the charges at that point. And in the 11th hour, he decided, nope, I want a hearing.
Oh, my goodness.
And Joe and Christina had to testify. Thankfully, we prepared for that alternative. But I said to myself, I could not have better, victims in a case. I mean, they were just true professionals. I mean, so if you think about less than a week after, or excuse me, roughly a week after Joe was, had surgery from his injuries, and Christina going through this traumatic event, and both had to testify and relive it at the prelim, and did an outstanding job. And quite frankly, I believe, and we got into the fact that there was already an existing protection from abuse order against this offender. His aunt had filed and received an order for protection because of violence inflicted upon her, or threats of violence. And there was some real interfering with his family members, his parents. But nonetheless, Joe and Christina testified. They showed the strength of our case. And I believe that's the direct reason we did not end up having a trial. We did not end up negotiating the case. We stood firm on all charges as is. And ultimately, he pled guilty. Now, the only caveat is it's a mentally ill, guilty but mentally ill, because there was an expert, and I will say this particular expert the Commonwealth uses, who identified the fact that he was in a psychosis, but the whole focus of the report was the psychosis was in large part inconsistent with what the defendant claims, years of mental health, hearing voices, but more consistent with his prolonged drug use. And so it's a distinction without a difference in the ultimate finding. It just mandates that once convicted, that he has to have mental health treatment while incarcerated in the state. So that was the only caveat, and ultimately, so he pled guilty, and I would say that was a hard day. Joe, I don't know if you want to explain that, how you and Christina felt the day of the plea, because sentencing was deferred to a later date.
We were expecting a guilty plea, but he pled no contest, so there was no admission of guilt even at the sentence, the plea date.
Which you would have loved to hear.
Right.
I was waiting to hear it.
Yes.
I was waiting from August 18th until today.
Yes.
And still, there's no definitive closure when there's no accountability.
Yes. Good point.
And that's something that's been lagging ever since.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the law is such that, he can enter a no-low plea over, regardless of our agreement or position or objection. But it is, I would say, and there's a legal basis for it. But
Okay.
I agree 100% with Joe. And oftentimes we see that those individuals never succeed when they are candidates for probation years later, because they have never admitted fully and took responsibility in the first
For their
place.
action.
So he admitted to all of the facts, which extensive facts were placed on the record, that they were the facts that would establish the elements of the crime, but never actually admitted, nor, most importantly, didn't apologize. Obviously, sentencing was deferred, and there was no apology. There was no apology from family members, his parents, even though this is a 26-year-old man at the time of sentencing. And then there was this kind of, I don't know how you want to characterize it, Joe, but like there was a delay in the proceeding, and then this kind of impromptu, really lame, quite frankly, half-hearted apology that was only said after the argument was made that he has never once apologized for his actions.
And victim impact statements were very detailed in that regards, and then it was in response to that.
They were outstanding. Joe are you okay with me mentioning your family member, not
Sure.
by name, but
Sure.
Joe's young daughter, who stood up there so eloquently and did the most beautiful victim impact statement. And from her perspective, and I'm married to a member of law enforcement. I have children, so I could relate to Joe's wife. I could relate to what Joe's daughter was going through. And I'm witnessing this young kid come up and her brother in uniform supporting her. She did such a beautiful job honoring her dad's profession, and no question that she is the direct result of Joe and his lovely wife. This kid, strong kid. And then Christina's statement, wow, that was powerful. And one of the things Joe and I were just talking about that Christina reminded all of us, and we're in this field, is that probation and parole they're an arm of the court.
They are.
They carry out the court's sentence, or the court's order of sentence. So when the court says, I'm sentencing you to a term of probation or a term of, incarceration with parole, and they grant parole, they go out and enforce the court's order. And that was like a powerful, summation of like, I'm doing the work. I'm doing your work. Without us, the system fails.
Yes.
It fails. And then just beautifully eloquent by all accounts. And yes, it was in response to the fact that he realized, I should probably say something that appears to be an apology, but it was nothing. It was not even close to a sincere apology. Not even.
And Jen's not going to like this, but it meant the world to me, and I've told her personally, and I don't want to embarrass her, but I got home from the hospital on August 19th, late afternoon. We're settling in. I'm getting something real to eat for the first time in 18 hours because I had to fast for the surgery.
Sure.
And I get this text from this woman I've never met, and she tells me she's the first assistant district attorney. So I'm like, wow, Matt did it again. He's giving me his best, right? And then I won't go into the details of the text, but I was reassured that we would walk together from that day forward until this was resolved in court with every amount of effort and zeal that she could give. And then when I found out that she is the mother of children of law enforcement officers, I mean, I knew her identifying in my wife's shoes, in my children's shoes, were going to make all the difference. And
Sure.
I wasn't going to be a number. And I can't be more appreciative of the job that Jen's done and is doing. I mean, as this thing progresses, the outcome that Christina and I have talked regularly about is with a different district attorney, with a different prosecutor who was less empathetic, who was less informative.
Yes.
When Jen has news, she delivers it minutes after she hears it, good, bad, or indifferent, and she does it in a way that makes it palatable and bearable. And she won't hang up the phone until we're pretty sure legally about what we're facing. So
exactly.
I needed to put that on the record. You've made all the difference to both of us.
That's terrific.
Well, thank you.
And it's good to see the cohesiveness. Your back is covered, as you can tell, with the entire district attorney's office, the leadership now with Jennifer, and it's just touching to know when you're out there in law enforcement, and for our listeners to realize the strong bond that keeps this thread of justice going properly, and we'll unturn every stone to make sure that the people are accountable for their actions, which is most important. We're going to take another quick break,
Okay.
Joe, Jen, but remarkable story, and it's great to be living here in Bucks County with the leadership that obviously you hear on all of our shows here, Justice for All. We'll return in a couple minutes after a couple words from our sponsors.
During the Toyota Ready, Set, Go sales event, just imagine yourself in a new Toyota. Whatever you need, from an electric vehicle to a rugged, versatile truck, we have new Toyotas on the ground for immediate delivery. Or choose from over 100 certified used options, which undergo a rigorous inspection and include an amazing warranty. Plus service centers that can save you time and money and keep you on the road. So let's go to Team Toyota this spring. Just visit teamtoyota.net to find a location near you.
WBCB is now on your FM dial at 107.3. Serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer counties since 1958, you can now listen to all of your BCB favorites crystal clear on 107.3 FM. A new age for WBCB on a new frequency, 107.3.
Opinions matter, and so does yours. Hi, I'm Joe Fabrizi, inviting you to join us every Monday at 1 p.m. for Opinions Matter, right here on 1490 AM WBCB. Opinions Matter is now live streamed at WBCB1490.com. We want to hear from you because your opinion does matter.
During the Toyota Ready, Set, Go sales event, just imagine yourself in a new Toyota. Whatever you need, from an electric vehicle to a rugged, versatile truck, we have new Toyotas on the ground for immediate delivery. Or choose from over 100 certified used options, which undergo a rigorous inspection and include an amazing warranty. Plus service centers that can save you time and money and keep you on the road. So let's go to Team Toyota this spring. Just visit teamtoyota.net to find a location near you.
We're back at Justice for All on WBCB 1490, sponsored by my good friend and my boss, Paul Muller, who's out and about. Who knows where he is? I call him Mr. Ubiquitous. You see him on TV. The Phillies talk about him. I mean, all of his charitable efforts certainly go a long way, and I want to thank Paul for sponsoring this show. We've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing these shows for almost 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah, which is fantastic.
I
have the opportunity to meet such wonderful people as yourselves. Truthfully, I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this bullet detecting technology to a degree. I know that it's probably not something that's rendered proficiently yet in Bucks County and other townships, right?
So I'll turn it over to Joe as to the shot spotter, and then I can talk briefly about the NIBIN terminal that we just partnered with our collar counties, Montgomery County, Chester County, Delaware County, and it's a fantastic investigative tool.
Right.
But I'll turn it over to Joe on the shot spotter.
So shot spotter is used generally in higher crime areas, and what it detects is it triangulates through microphones the source of a bullet and notifies 911 the area of where a gun was fired.
Wow.
And most of your urban cities have that. I'm not sure if we're running it in Bucks, but that combined with a whole layer of other new technologies make it real hard to be a conventional criminal. I mean, DNA, Bucks County has a county-wide DNA database, the expansive use of cameras, right? License plate technology, automatic license plate readers. Yardley just put our first one up at Main and Afton.
Awesome.
Which will give us forensics in the case of a crime. We can go back and look, but we'll also have 2 of our cars shortly outfitted through a federal grant on that. So yeah, I mean, there's more and more and more technology coming each and every day, which is going to make it much more proficient for us to catch criminals. And then we were lucky enough, I'm going to ask Jen to talk a little bit about. The county was lucky enough to receive an anti-gun violence grant, which is going to give the county some capabilities.
Yeah, so we were so fortunate. One of my colleagues did a wonderful job with the grant writing, and as a result of Steve's wonderful work, we were awarded quite a sum of money, and there's multiple facets to what we're going to do with the money to help combat gun violence. But one of the things that's really cool is that we partnered with Montgomery County, Chester County, and Delaware County for this NIBIN terminal, where NIBIN allows for any used spent shell casings to be entered into this terminal database, and it'll identify the unique markings, and it'll search the database and link it to other crimes. And you know, Tom, and I'm sure you know this, Joe, I know knows this, that, you know, I've had homicides connected. Back in 2004 and 5, there were a series of Bristol Township murders. There were at least 3 linked to one particular gun that it took, quite frankly, 2 years in grand jury to try to gather the evidence to link the perpetrators to having used this one gun that was then, you know, too hot for that individual to use, so he gave it to an associate who used it in another murder, who then gave it to an associate who used it in another murder. This will allow that information and technology to go into that terminal and gather and pull, you know, that intelligence and be available at our fingertips. And so it's a tremendous advantage to combating gun violence. And at the, you know, press conference to announce this, you know, one of the things that we were all proud of is we made it clear in our counties and that where we work and prosecute, we will pursue you. We will gather the evidence, we will pursue you, and we will arrest and prosecute you. And we're proud of that. As you said in your lead-in, we are a safe community, and we continue to, be a safe community because of the progressive things that we do to combat gun violence.
That's remarkable for the listeners out there to be aware of that. It's comforting.
Yes.
That we're able to now more effectively dig deep, and as I said, flip every stone that's out there to prosecute and be effective. So this is great technology that
very excited.
Continues. And for you criminals out there, if you think you can come into Bucks County and commit crime, if we don't find you in the beginning, we'll find you eventually, and at the end, you'll pay for the crime that you commit. Philadelphia, I can't say that. Unfortunately, my opinion, right now, it's like the wild, wild west in Philadelphia. And a lot of these criminals are coming up from Philadelphia. They're coming up 95, and they think that they can get away with things. Bucks County's a lot different from a prosecutorial perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we pride ourselves in pursuing every case, and obviously there are hurdles that present challenges, but we try to I work with wonderful people, and we don't give up.
We have a zero tolerance for crime, and that's why people love living in Bucks County.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the other surrounding counties are starting to take heed. Wouldn't you say that, Joe?
We definitely, yes.
A lot of our chiefs, as I mentioned, Johnny Hearn, you mentioned
George McClay.
There you go, George. George McClay out there. Jimmy Donnelly, who's in Warminster.
Yes.
Kenny Caluzzi in Lower Makefield.
And if we're going through your Philadelphia colleagues, Joe Bartarolo.
Joe Bartarolo, too. Right. He was on our show a few shows ago, right, Bray?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Bartarolo came on, and a lot of the leadership in Philadelphia, they moved up, and now they're taking on responsibilities here.
And then you sprinkle a few of these Jersey guys. You got to watch them.
There you go, New Jersey Transit Police, which is fantastic, Joe. Yeah, but it's just great, the leadership. I want to read what the compassion that the leadership provides here, and I'm quoting the chief here. It is my hope that Mr. Petroziello gets the help he so desperately needs, and he's rehabilitated during his incarceration. Today's sentence, which was, I believe, 2 concurrent terms of 15 to 30 years that Judge Bateman handed down. So great prosecution. I wish it was longer, but, we found justice here. Today's sentence is consistent with the various goals of corrections. I will forever be grateful to the police officers who responded. And you also appreciate the difficult jobs of our probation and parole officers. The seamless cooperation among Bucks County law enforcement agencies increases the level of public safety for all. It's your perspective. It just epitomizes judiciousness and the prudent optimism that you have. It goes without saying. It's just remarkable, especially after what you went through.
I am optimistic. I mean, I believe I have the greatest job on earth, being a police officer. I haven't regretted it one day.
Thank you. I believe that as well.
And there are people who have.
Yeah.
But I have not. People ask, how can you let your son follow you into this job? I said, it's not a job. It's a calling.
It is. It's a profession. You're right.
And you have the ability to impact people each and every day. But I do think, and Jen and I have had conversations offline in private, what's occurring with criminal justice is not in a vacuum in Bucks County, right? No. There's national trends. And policing is on the way back. We took a big hit because of the actions of a handful of people in 2020.
Yep.
And that set us back a long way. We're seeing recruiting challenges that I haven't seen in 47 years. And it's getting very, very difficult. And we need to talk to these advocacy groups that think they're doing a good job. I welcome watchdogs. Mm-hmm. Most chiefs do. We don't want bad cops in our ranks.
No.
But we can't put down the whole profession.
No.
And villainize the whole profession, because it's going to get worse and not better if we do that. We need to attract the best candidates, train the best candidates, right? So I think we're starting to come out of this.
Yes.
And I think what's going to follow is the way criminals are handled, right? The sentences are light. Bail reform, I think, is hurting
yes.
every jurisdiction in this country. Activist prosecutors in certain cities are hurting those cities profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
And those are costing human lives.
Yes, they
the
are.
media doesn't really tell you that, but each and every weekend in some of these cities, we're losing lives.
Yes,
They're
we
people. And nobody's really covering that. But I think we're on the way out. I think we're seeing a change. I think the belief and faith in our police is increasing. And being a chief, you have to manage that, right? Even in a small town where I'm at. I told the guys in 2020, we will come out of this. I've seen ebb and flow through history, right? And we'll come out of this. And the only way out of this is to do our job each and every day like we're supposed to do it. Right?
And that starts with leadership right at the top.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe that's what Philadelphia needs to take a real close 2020 vision eye on. These candidates are running for mayor. It starts from the leadership, as in Philadelphia, to effectively, as you pointed out, Joe, train the professionals to come out. And they really want, it's a calling, it's a vocation, to do the job effectively so that people are safe. And I don't see that down there. I see too much leniency with the way the laws are down. And when I say, I'm talking about Philadelphia now. And but up here, I think we are coming out of it. I think the professionalism we'll see stand out more. People who want to take this profession on, which is a great profession, being a police officer, law enforcement, the accreditation that is available to them with schooling, and the experience that they'll receive from the leadership, such as you, Joe, and our chiefs and our other supervisors, will make it even better. I think it's going to get there.
Well said.
Yeah, I hope.
I agree.
Yeah, but how are we doing, Bray? We have 3 minutes. Closure. What would we like to cover?
I couldn't agree with you more about, the punitive aspect of when you commit a crime. There is a focus on rehabilitation, certainly with our youth, and that should be the focus. There is a benefit when you're under 18 to use the resources to rehabilitate, and our county does it best, our juvenile probation. But at some point, you continue down that path and you continue to, refuse the support that you're being offered, and you continue to commit crimes. There is a punitive aspect of.
Yes, there is.
And we have to remember that. And it helps with prevention, deterrence, and so I'm proud to work with excellent prosecutors who keep focus on what we should focus on. We divert the crimes that should be diverted. Low-level, non-violent offenders who may have circumstances that lent itself to the crime. But when you have violent offenders, there has to be a punishment.
Accountability.
The accountability.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Joe?
And I agree. I mean, Jen and I have talked offline on this topic as well. When we don't enforce rules, we create new rules, right? So if we move that bar where it becomes acceptable in a given jurisdiction, then we just create a new rule that nothing gets followed.
You're right.
I agree too. Good police officers utilize a lot of discretion, right? Just like good prosecutors do. But when the time comes where an arrest is made, a charge is filed, then we need to follow through on that, and there needs to be those sanctions in order to create that deterrence from everybody else.
No doubt. Well, I want to thank you, Joe, for coming on. Hopefully you'll come back and join us again. Your show, it airs on
Tuesday third Tuesday of every month.
There you go, to third Tuesday
1 o'clock.
of every month, 1 o'clock.
On WBCB.
Listen to Chief Joe Kelly. Jennifer will be with me every other month, and we'll be discussing many more good matters that are legislated, and the accountability is what's most important.
Absolutely.
With our district attorney's office. Want to thank Paul Mellon once again. Stay tuned for all of our shows from my predecessor here, which obviously we don't see them right now, but the leadership is here in Bucks County, and we want to thank each and every one of our law enforcement officials and our legislators for doing a great job here in Bucks County. We'll see you soon. Be safe. Stay well. Jerry, I'm coming home to walk the dog with you, as I tell her all the time. And God bless America.